Alright guys, this is a 2003 Yamaha R6 instructional video on how to change your rear and front sprocket along with your chain. As you can see in the video, I've already taken off the bottom fairings both on the left and right side. It was just easier to do that. I also took the time to clean my chain and sprockets before I got started. It's not necessary to clean your sprocket and chain, but I just found that since I'd be taking it off anyway, it'd be a lot easier to just touch and not have to really change as many gloves. As I'm pointing out here, that little screw in there is kind of a pain in the ass. I was gonna take that off sooner, but I'll have to wait until I take off the back tire to do that. I also found out is I'll have to take off the overflow for the coolant, which I'll show you guys here in a minute, which is right there. There's actually a little bolt, and then behind that, what I just pointed to, you'll be taking off that piece to actually look at your front sprocket. That is what you're going to need to take out to move that. What I actually did is loosen that up, and I actually just set that off to the side. I took that completely off the bike. I do find that it just makes it easier to get in there, and then you just pop off the cover of that. That is the front sprocket you guys are taking a look at. Extremely dirty. I'm not sure how long that was on the bike. That's my buddy Jovel, who's helping me out with the project. You can do it yourself. I've seen a lot of videos online taking it off yourself, but it's easier with two people. Definitely want to make sure that you're putting something in the back wheel to keep that from rotating. We also made sure the bike was in neutral, and he used a breaker bar to get off that front nut. He then loosened it with his hand, and basically just comes off. Just take your time, make sure you're doing everything the way you're supposed to. Take off the washer there, and then we're gonna leave that on momentarily. Next up, we are taking off the chain. I saw a couple different ways to do this. You can use a Dremel like we're doing. If you have any type of humongous bolt cutters, I've seen that done as well. Again, whichever way you choose to do it, just take your time, be safe about it, make sure you are using the proper tools, and just kind of have a general idea of what you're doing. Our thought process was on this is just to grind down where the master pin was, and then just push it out with a riveting tool. Once we had the correct attachment on there for the grinder, worked pretty easy, and it ended up coming off fairly simple. As you can see there, you do have your riveting and braking tool. You're just going to slowly screw that out, and it's basically going to pop out that pin that's in your master link there, as Jovel's doing there. Again, take your time, make sure that it's lined up correctly. You know, this is going to take you a little bit. It didn't take us too long, but you just want to make sure that you do this right, do everything once, instead of messing up and potentially ruining your bike. Alright, so we got the back tire off. You want to definitely be gentle when you're putting that on the ground. Now we can finally get in there and take that weird looking thing out of there. Terrible design, but whatever. I would definitely recommend taking the time to clean your chain cover and also the piece that your chain glides over. Mine were extremely dirty, and they are pretty much almost brand new now at this point, so I definitely recommend doing that. Again, you don't have to, but if you already have it off, why not? Okay, so the tire's down on the ground. Make sure you do this very slowly. Make sure you're not bending anything. Taking off the old sprocket on this bike, it was, I believe, an aluminum Vortex 50 tooth. We're putting on a stock size steel 48 tooth. It was a kit that came on, and we'll talk about what else came with it. Again, you're going to want to put those washers and nuts on in a star pattern, and you're also going to want to tighten them in a star pattern. There was a little bit of discrepancy found online how tight to make the back. I found on some forums 25 to 30 pounds. People were having issues with them getting stripped, but I did confirm with the dealership it is 72 pounds for the back sprocket nuts, and we did not have an issue with mine. So the pieces that you took off, you're going to have then, of course, put them back on. Try to remember how you put them on. It's a lot easier if you do that. Again, for the front sprocket, a lot of people were saying you want to have the writing out. Some people said you want to have the writing in. We just basically used a reference of the picture that was in the owner's manual and also how the initial sprocket was on that we took off. In that case, the lettering was in, and I never had any failures with the bike or issues. So again, we did writing in on the front sprocket. Again, that driver sprocket should be torqued at 65 pounds. Again, that it will be in your owner's manual, and it also was confirmed by the dealership. Again, you want to make sure that you're putting your washer back on there before you're putting the nut back on. It is a pretty good tip to then, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but you're going to need a screwdriver and a hammer. You're just going to gently tap that washer into the nut, just to make sure that it doesn't come loose, and it just kind of helps hold it in place a little bit. You'll see Joe will do that in just a second here. So here again, before I put the back tire on, I did put the chain guard back on because of that weird placed bolt or whatever you want to call it. We also jumped ahead a little bit and did put the rear tire back on. It is recommended that you do re-grease your rear axle. You can use any type of thick bearing grease and that should work just fine. Make sure it's spinning. Again, I kept the bike in neutral during the whole process. You just basically want to get your axle through there again. I was just double checking my brakes worked. Okay, so now we gently guided the chain from the back to the front. We found the master links. Was definitely recommended that they are well lubed, both the O-rings and the part that you're actually putting in the master link. They said most fails will happen there if that's not taken care of, so definitely want to make sure there's some grease or lube. I did get a Vortex V3 chain kit along with the sprockets, 48 in the back and 15 tooth in the front, which is one lower than the stock, which is a 16 in the front. But it came highly recommended by the people who used it before. I took it for a test drive. I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. But it was already pre-cut. Didn't have to mess with cutting the chain, didn't have to really do anything besides just put it on there and make sure that it was basically greased up, ready to go. So what you're seeing Jovel do here is we put the master link pins through. He's just getting the O-rings greased up and kind of just fitting them properly to where they need to go. Once he's done doing that, you're going to see him put that on there with his hands. We're just going to press a little bit so that gets on there. And again, make sure that that master is really lubed up. You're going to take your riveting tool and make sure you have the correct attachments to actually rivet the pins in the new one. The old chain just had a C-clamp on it. It seems like the better recommendation is to get a chain with rivets on it. So I would definitely recommend going that route if you're going to get another chain or a newer chain for your bike. Took us a little bit to get this lined up properly. Again, this is something that you don't want to rush. You want to take your time. You want to kind of measure twice, cut once, as they say. So take your time, get everything lined up. You don't want to crush the crap out of them. Again, you don't want those O-rings blowing out. You do want them compressed. Once you get that on there, you do want to tighten up the drive sprocket again to 65 pounds using a torque wrench. Highly recommend doing what the manual tells you to. And as we mentioned earlier, we are going to just kind of bash that washer a little bit so that that holds that tight there. Okay, so now we're going to adjust the rear wheel to make sure that the slack is where it needs to be. course you're going to see these little spinning screws, and there will be lines etched in the back of your bike. You want to reference your owner's manual. I believe it said about 1.5 to 2 inches chain slack is kind of where you want it to be, so use a tape roller, very simple to do. Line them up. Once you're happy with how that's lined up, your torque wrench is your rear axle nut, 80 pounds. Again, that is confirmed with the owner's manual, and I also did call a dealership on that. Some bikes will have a little pin in there, but my year did not. Once the job is done, it should definitely look a lot cleaner than when you started. Everything went on, no issues. Appreciate the help from Joel, and I got out and rode it, and everything felt great. So good luck, guys. Thanks.
To my right, and I'ma get faded at the tiki bar tonight. Then I'ma rolling up like my name